Hi, I'm James. I'm just about to repot my cheese plant, or Monstera Deliciosa for its Latin name. I'm going to do this because when I first got her, she had like, what, 3 leaves? And she's in this teeny tiny pot, which you can see she's definitely outgrown because she's putting out new leaves constantly, and she's got one coming now. And so I'm thinking she might be a bit nutrient deficient because a couple of the leaves down the bottom, and if you can see, have got this sort of marking. We have had a heat wave, so it might just be sunburn or something, but I'm not going to take any chances, and I needed to do it anyway. So I'm going to show you the sort of potting mix that I would recommend for any plant in the aroid family, which the cheese plant is. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. So I'm just going to use this old plastic pot to mix my potting mix in, and I've got a little spade as well. First thing I'm going to put in is this Coco Coir. You can use general all-purpose like indoor plant compost, but because it contains peat and peat isn't renewable, they dig it out of the ground. I'm trying to cut down on using that, so I'm using Coco Coir, which retains just the same amount of moisture, but it's just ground up coconut husk basically. I'm going to do 2 parts of my Coco Coir mix. Like that. And then the next component that I'm going to add is this orchid bark. Because cheese plants generally grow on trees in the wild, and all aroids generally grow in sort of jungle and forest conditions, there's going to be a lot of bark laying on the ground, and they like that, and it helps moisture go through the soil and stop it clogging up and becoming too damp, which can rot the roots. I'm going to do 2 parts orchid bark into that Coco Coir mix. That's roughly about 2 parts, I'd say. Roughly the equivalent of the Coco Coir. And then the next thing that I'm going to add is perlite. It looks like polystyrene, but it's volcanic rock ground up, I believe. And it helps with aeration of the soil, and again to stop it becoming too waterlogged. Because they like to be damp, but they don't want to be soggy all the time. So 1.5 parts of this I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to add is what's called worm castings, which is worm poo, basically. This is just worm poo. It doesn't smell of anything, it just smells like soil. So I'm going to do 1.5 parts of this. And the reason I'm adding this is because it's got a very high nutritious content. So it acts as a really good natural fertiliser for the plant. There you go. It will all be mixed up. It just looks like a load of worm poo, but it will be mixed in, so it's all good. The last thing that I'm going to add is activated charcoal. And this helps to absorb excess moisture if you're a bit too trigger happy with your watering, which I am, because I love watering my plants and I end up killing them with too much love. So I'm going to add some activated charcoal, and that's used a lot in terrariums because it also soaks up, like, it can help it stinking and becoming like gross. So I'm going to add 1.5 parts of activated charcoal into the mix. And that's everything added, and now I'm just going to mix it up. And there you go, there's the mix. So you've got your 2 parts Coco Coir, your 2 parts orchid bark, 1.5 parts perlite, 1.5 parts worm castings, and 1.5 parts activated charcoal. So it's going to retain moisture, but it's not going to get soaked. And now I'm going to put the cheese plant in. So this is the actual pot that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to pour a bit of the mix in the bottom, and then I'm going to sit cheese plant on top and fill in around it. There we go, that should be alright. Not that much. The old pot in the new pot, like that. And then I'm going to take out the old pot, gently squeeze the sides, try to loosen up the roots as much as you can. Yes, there we go, it'll come out like that. And as you can see, it is pretty root bound. It's all circling around the bottom and everything. And I'm going to just squeeze it a little bit, loosen up that substrate a little bit. That should fit perfectly into the new space. Give it some water just so that its roots and everything can establish into the new soil. Try not to get the foliage, because that can promote rot, and we don't want that. We just want to get the roots. I've got it somewhat trailing up a moss pole. This one's made of coconut husk, I think, but you can get moss. And all it does is retain a bit of humidity and keep it moist. And things like cheese plants grow up tree trunks. So they will start with these little sort of shaped leaves coming up the seedling, and that will stick against the tree and absorb sunlight and make more energy, and then as they grow further up the tree they attach with their aerial roots and produce these lovely leaves with all the fenestrations to catch all the little dappled rays of sunlight that come through to the canopy. And then these old leaves will shrivel up, and so will their little stems, and then you'll just have big ones like this clinging to the tree trunk. So that is what this is, a tree basically. So I'm going to train that to climb up there with its aerial roots. For this long bit, I'm going to tie it up with some garden twine for now. Hopefully you found that somewhat useful or interesting, and if you did, then please like or subscribe, and I'll be doing a lot more videos about all kinds of different plants and everything botanical.